3 years ago, my wife and I bought our first house. It wasn't big, a narrow 2-story place at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, with beige siding and a maple tree in the front yard that dropped helicopter seeds every spring. The kind of neighborhood where people waved from their driveways and put their trash cans out at exactly the same time every Thursday. We weren't chasing luxury. We just wanted something that was ours. The first few weeks felt like a honeymoon phase. We painted the living room a soft gray. We argued lightly over curtain rods. We ate takeout on the floor because our furniture hadn't arrived yet. At night, we'd sit on the back steps and listen to crickets hum behind the fence. Our next-door neighbor, Tom, introduced himself on day 2. Late 50s, maybe early 60s, thinning hair, square glasses, polite but reserved. "Let me know if you need tools," he said, nodding toward our half-assembled patio chairs. "I've got just about everything." He lived alone. Said his wife had passed a few years back. He didn't linger in conversation, but he wasn't unfriendly either, just quiet. For a while, everything felt settled. The first odd thing was small enough that I almost forgot about it. About a month in, I noticed our side gate was unlatched one morning. I distinctly remembered closing it the night before because our dog, Murphy, had been sniffing around the fence line. I mentioned it to my wife. "Maybe the wind?" she said, tying her hair back. "It was gusty last night." That made sense. The latch wasn't great. A few days later, Murphy started hesitating near that same side of the yard. He'd trot out confidently, then slow near the fence that separated us from Tom's property. Sometimes he'd just stand there, staring at the wooden panels, ears forward, not barking, just listening. Dogs do that, I told myself. They hear things we don't. Then came the smells. One evening in early fall, we were watching TV when I caught a faint odor drifting through the vents. Sweet, almost metallic. Not gas exactly, not garbage either. "You smell that?" I asked. My wife lifted her head. "Yeah, like paint thinner?" We checked under the sinks. Nothing. The stove was off. The smell faded after 20 minutes. The next morning, I saw Tom in his driveway, loading black contractor bags into the back of his SUV. They looked heavy, the plastic stretched tight around whatever was inside. "Big cleanup?" I called over. He startled slightly, then forced a small smile. "Basement project. Old stuff." The way he said it felt rehearsed. But again, there was nothing concrete, just a tone. Over the next few weeks, little things kept stacking up. Murphy scratching at the back door at odd hours of the night. Low growling in his throat. A dull thudding sound once around midnight that seemed to come from underground, like something heavy being dropped. I lay in bed listening, trying to map the sound in my head. It stopped after 3 thuds. The first real red flag came on a Saturday afternoon. I was mowing the lawn when my wheel caught on something near the fence. I shut the mower off and knelt down. A section of soil along the fence line looked freshly turned, darker than the rest of the yard, soft. I pushed my fingers into it, expecting roots or rocks. Instead, I felt fabric. I pulled gently and uncovered a scrap of what looked like a flannel shirt sleeve, faded red and black check pattern, torn at the seam. I stood up slowly and looked over the fence. Tom's yard was quiet, curtains drawn. Even though it was mid-afternoon, I debated for a minute, then knocked on his door. He answered quickly, as if he'd been standing just inside. "Hey," I said, holding up the fabric. This was half buried along the fence. "Didn't know if it blew over from your place." He stared at it a second too long. "Oh, yeah, that's mine," he said. "Rag. For staining wood." "It's a shirt sleeve," I said lightly. He gave a tight shrug. "Cut it up." There was a faint sheen of sweat on his forehead, despite the cool weather. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Of course," he said. His voice flattened slightly. "Why wouldn't it be?" I handed it back. He closed the door without another word. That night, my wife said what we were both thinking. That felt weird. "Yeah," I admitted, "it did." The escalation happened about a week later. We came home from dinner and saw police cars parked outside Tom's house. 2 officers stood near the front steps. Another circled toward the backyard. My stomach tightened. One officer approached us as we got out of the car. "Do you live next door?" "Yes," I said. "Have you noticed anything unusual recently? Smells, sounds, visitors?" My wife and I exchanged a look. "What's going on?" she asked. "We received a wellness check request," he said. "Tom's sister hasn't heard from him in several days." "That's strange," I said. "We saw him yesterday. The officer frowned slightly. Yesterday? Late afternoon, I said. He was in his driveway. The officer nodded, scribbled something down. They left about an hour later. No sirens, no urgency. The next morning, Tom knocked on our door. When I opened it, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked thinner somehow, hollow around the eyes. Police said you talked to them, he said calmly. Yeah, I replied. They asked if we'd seen you, and you said you had. Because we did. He held my gaze for a long second. Too long. Good, he said finally. That's good. There was something off in his relief, not gratitude. Calculation. After that, things accelerated. The metallic smell came back, stronger this time, drifting through the vents at night. Murphy refused to go into the backyard after dark. He'd plant his paws and tremble slightly, eyes fixed on the fence. One night around 1:30 a.m., I woke to a scraping sound, slow, rhythmic. I nudged my wife. You hear that? We both lay still. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. It was coming from outside, near the side yard. I got up and quietly walked to the window. The streetlight cast a pale orange glow over the fence line. At first, I saw nothing. Then I noticed movement. Tom was in our yard. He was crouched near the fence, facing the exact patch where I'd found the fabric. He held a shovel. My breath caught in my throat. He dug slowly, deliberately, glancing over his shoulder every few seconds. I stepped back from the window, heart hammering. Call the police, I whispered. By the time officers arrived, Tom was back inside his house. The yard looked undisturbed in the dim light. They knocked on his door. He answered groggily, wearing a robe. Is there a problem? He asked. The officers shone flashlights around, but found nothing conclusive. The soil was freshly turned again, but that wasn't illegal. We'll make a note of it, one officer told me quietly. If it continues, document everything. The twist came 2 days later. A different squad car pulled up mid-morning. 2 detectives this time. They asked to speak with us inside. Tom passed away 3 years ago, one of them said. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. That's not possible, my wife said. We've been talking to him for months. The detectives slid a photograph across our table. It was Tom. The same square glasses, same face, but the photo was clearly older. A memorial pamphlet from a funeral home. Date of death, 3 years prior. He owned this property, the detective explained. After he died, it was transferred to a distant relative who lives out of state. The house has technically been vacant. I stared at him. We've been speaking to him, I said slowly. He helped us assemble patio furniture. The detective's expression didn't change. Are you certain it was him? I nodded. They searched the house next door that afternoon. Inside, they found minimal furniture, a mattress on the floor, some canned food, tools, no personal photos, no mail addressed to Tom, and in the basement, freshly disturbed soil. They wouldn't tell us much after that, only that the man we knew as Tom was not Tom. Fingerprints didn't match the deceased homeowner. He had no valid ID. He was gone by then, disappeared sometime overnight. The peak came the night before we decided to leave. We were packing essentials into suitcases, not permanently, just until things settled. Around midnight, Murphy began that low growl again. Not barking, just vibrating. There was a soft knock at the back door, not the front. 3 slow taps. I felt my pulse in my throat. My wife's hand found mine in the dark. We didn't move. Another knock, slightly firmer. Through the glass pane, I could see a silhouette standing inches away, still, patient. Please, a voice said softly. Familiar, calm. I just need to talk. It was him, not angry, not frantic, just measured. We stayed silent. Minutes stretched. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and uneven. Finally, the silhouette shifted. Slow footsteps across the patio. Then nothing. We didn't sleep that night. By morning, his house was empty. Mattresses gone, the basement dirt covered neatly, as if nothing had been touched. Police never found him. We sold the house 6 months later, disclosed everything we legally had to, nothing more. Sometimes I think about how normal it all felt in the beginning. Maple tree, the quiet Thursdays, the way he offered us tools with that small, polite smile. What unsettles me most isn't that someone was hiding next door. It's how easily we accepted him as exactly who he said he was. and how, if the police had never knocked on our door, we probably still would. The police officer kept his flashlight trained on the tree line while my dad stood a few feet ahead of him, pointing toward my bedroom window. "That's where he was," my dad said. "Right there." He didn't move. He was just standing there. I was watching all of it from the top of the stairs, my stomach in knots, because I knew exactly which part of my room that spot lined up with. It was on the side of my bed. This all started when I was 17, and my family moved into a newly built house in a quiet subdivision outside of Columbus, Ohio. It was the kind of neighborhood where every lawn looked the same, and people waved when they drove by. My parents were excited about it. Bigger house, better school district, more space. At the time, it felt like a fresh start. The house was a 2-story colonial with an unfinished basement. When you walked in the front door, there was a staircase immediately to the right, leading upstairs. Straight ahead was the living room, and behind that the kitchen, which had sliding glass doors that opened to the backyard. Upstairs, there were 4 bedrooms arranged around a small square hallway. My parents' room was at the end of the hall on the left. My little brother's room was across from theirs. The bathroom sat between our rooms. Mine was the first door on the right when you reached the top of the stairs. My bedroom faced the backyard. The window was large and low enough that if you stood outside, you'd be at eye level with anyone inside. It had cheap white blinds that came with the house, the kind that never fully closed evenly. There was always a slight gap where the slats overlapped wrong. Directly across from my bed was a tall dresser with a mirror mounted above it. So if I lay on my right side, I could see my bedroom window reflected clearly in that mirror. The backyard itself wasn't huge. A wooden privacy fence wrapped around 3 sides, separating us from the neighbors on either side and the property behind us. Beyond the back fence was a narrow strip of trees, and then another street. The gate on the left side of the yard led to our driveway and made a distinct creaking sound whenever it opened. At first, nothing seemed off. The first time I noticed something, it was small. I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone around midnight. It was early September, still warm enough that I had my window cracked open. I heard what sounded like a faint crunch, like someone stepping on gravel. I froze and listened. Nothing. I told myself it was probably a raccoon or a stray cat. We'd already seen both in the neighborhood. I shut my window just in case and went to sleep. A few nights later, I heard it again. This time it sounded closer. Not near the fence, but near the house. A soft, slow shuffle. I muted my phone and held my breath. The sound stopped immediately. I remember thinking that was weird. If it were an animal, it wouldn't stop, just because I did. But after a minute of silence, I convinced myself I was being dramatic. I had a habit of watching crime videos before bed. My brain was probably filling in gaps. Over the next few weeks, it happened maybe once every couple of weeks. Always late, always when I was awake. Sometimes it was a soft crunch. Sometimes a faint scrape, like a shoe brushing against siding. Once I thought I heard breathing. Not loud, not exaggerated. Just a steady, almost patient inhale and exhale that didn't match my own. Every time I would stare at the blinds, waiting for a shadow to pass. I never saw anything directly. One night, though, I made the mistake of looking at the mirror instead. I had rolled onto my right side to face the wall. From that angle, I could see the reflection of my window perfectly. The blinds were mostly closed, but there was that familiar uneven gap near the center. For a second, I thought I saw something darker than the rest of the night sky fill that gap. I blinked. It was gone. My heart started racing, but I didn't move. I just lay there, telling myself it was a tree branch. The wind. My imagination. Eventually, I got up and checked the backyard light from the hallway window. Everything looked normal. Empty yard. Still a fence. Trees barely move. I didn't tell my parents. A month later, it got harder to ignore. I was studying at my desk around 11:30 page M when I heard 3 slow taps on the glass. Not loud, not frantic, just deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. I waited for laughter or someone running away. Nothing. I went into the hallway and called for my dad. He came upstairs annoyed but followed me back to my room. He turned on the backyard floodlight and went outside with a flashlight. He checked along the fence near the house behind the shed. Nothing. He told me it was probably debris blown by the wind. When I mentioned the earlier noises, he sighed and asked if I'd been watching those true crime things again. I dropped it after that. The incidents became less frequent as winter set in. Once it snowed, everything stopped completely. I remember feeling relieved. Snow would show footprints. There hadn't been any. By February, I had almost convinced myself it had all been stress. Spring changed that. The first warm night in April, I left my window cracked again. Around midnight, I heard the shuffle. Clearer this time, slower. I didn't move. Then I heard what sounded like someone shifting their weight against the siding of the house. A soft, subtle thud. I stared straight ahead, refusing to look at the window or the mirror. I felt exposed, just lying there. The next morning, I checked the yard before school. There were faint impressions in the dirt beneath my window. Not clear footprints, just disturbed soil, like someone had stood there long enough to shift around. I took a picture and showed it to my mom. She frowned but said it could have been anything. After that, I started closing my blinds tightly and taping the uneven slats shut. I also rearranged my room so my bed wasn't directly against the window wall anymore. For a while, nothing happened. Graduation came. Summer got busy. I had a part-time job and spent most nights at friends' houses. That was the false sense of safety I needed to drop my guard again. It happened in late August, just before I left for college. My dad had let our dog out around 10:45 page, M, and forgot to bring him back in right away. The dog started growling near the back of the yard. Not barking, just a low, continuous growl. My dad went outside to see what was wrong. From my room, I heard him yell. Not a startled yell, an angry one. I ran to the top of the stairs and looked down toward the back door. He was already sprinting across the yard. The floodlight snapped on. There was a man standing directly outside my bedroom window. My dad said he was facing the glass, close enough that if my blinds hadn't been shut tight, he could have looked straight in. He didn't run at first. He just turned his head slowly toward my dad like he was annoyed at being interrupted. Then he bolted. He ran to the back fence, grabbed the top, and pulled himself over in one smooth motion. My dad tried to follow, but by the time he reached the fence, the guy was gone. When the police arrived, they searched the tree line and the street behind our house. They found nothing. The officer asked if anything like this had happened before. I hesitated. Then I told them everything. The noises, the tapping, the dirt, the mirror. My dad just stood there, looking sick. They took a report and recommended we install cameras. Within a week, we had 2 covering the backyard and 1 pointed directly at my window. We never caught him on camera, but that doesn't mean he didn't come back. Once, about a month later, the motion alert went off around 1 o'clock a.m. The footage showed the floodlight turning on and then nothing. No person, no animal. Just a brief flicker of shadow near the edge of the frame before it cut out. The police said it was probably a glitch. I left for college shortly after that. We never found out who he was. None of the neighbors reported seeing anyone. No one admitted to anything suspicious. What bothers me most isn't just that he was there. It's how long he might have been there before I ever noticed. How many nights I lay in bed lit by my phone screen while someone stood a few feet away in the dark. I used to love sleeping with my window open. Now I can't sleep unless every curtain is sealed tight. Even in my apartment 3 states away, I always check the blinds twice before bed. Sometimes when I catch my reflection in a mirror at night and see a window behind me, my stomach drops before my brain can catch up. Because I know how easy it is for someone to stand just outside that glass, and I know how long you can convince yourself you're imagining it. I remember the sound more than anything. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was just the soft scrape of something heavy shifting across the floor above me. Slow, careful, deliberate. I was frozen at the bottom of the basement stairs, one hand gripping the railing so tightly my fingers hurt. The house was supposed to be empty except for me and my little brother sleeping upstairs. But someone was moving around in the dark, and they were trying not to be heard. This happened when I was 16. It was late October, the kind of fall where the air smells like wet leaves and wood smoke. We had just moved into a 2-story house on the edge of a quiet subdivision in a small Midwestern town. Not rural, but not busy either. The kind of place where most people waved when they drove past. My parents had been saving for years to move out of our cramped townhouse. My dad wanted a yard. My mom wanted a bigger kitchen. I just wanted a door I could close. The house wasn't perfect. It was older, built in the late 70s, with creaky hardwood floors and outdated light fixtures. But it had space. 4 bedrooms, a finished basement, a detached garage. To us, it felt like an upgrade in every way. My little brother Mason was 8 at the time. He was excited about the backyard more than anything. There was a tall wooden fence and an old oak tree that dropped acorns everywhere. The previous owners had left behind a tire swing that my dad promised to reinforce. For the first few weeks, everything felt normal. Busy, even. Unpacking boxes, arguing about where furniture should go. My mom repaints cabinets late into the night while listening to true crime podcasts. There was nothing dramatic about the beginning. The first thing that felt off was small. One night, maybe 2 weeks after we moved in, I woke up because my bedroom door was open. I always sleep with it closed. I've done that since I was little. It's just a habit. But when I sat up, the hallway light was stretching across my carpet. I remember thinking maybe my mom had checked on me and forgotten to shut it all the way. That seemed logical. I got up, closed it, and went back to sleep. The next morning, I asked her casually if she'd come into my room. She looked confused. Why would I? I laughed it off. No reason. I thought maybe you did. It didn't feel like a big deal. After that, little things started happening. Cabinet doors in the kitchen would be open when no one remembered opening them. Once, I found the back door unlocked late at night when I was sure I had turned the deadbolt myself. My dad blamed the faulty latch and adjusted it with a screwdriver. Then came the sounds. At first, it was just the house settling. That's what I told myself. Old homes make noise. Pipes tick when they cool. Wood contracts. But these weren't random pops or creaks. They were footsteps. Slow ones. Not pacing. Not running. Just a few careful steps across the upstairs hallway when everyone was downstairs watching TV. The first time I really felt afraid was on a Tuesday evening. My parents were in the living room. Mason was playing a video game beside me. I went upstairs to grab a hoodie from my room. Halfway down the hallway, I stopped. My bedroom door was closed, which was normal, but I could hear something inside. A soft thud. Then another, like someone shifting their weight. I stood there for a full 10 seconds before convincing myself it had to be something falling in my closet. Maybe a box tipped over. I opened the door quickly. My room looked untouched. Closet door shut. Window locked. Nothing out of place. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't even tell Mason. I felt ridiculous for even being unsettled. But that night, I locked my bedroom door. The escalation happened slowly enough that I kept doubting myself. Food started disappearing. Nothing major. A yogurt cup here. A granola bar there. My mom assumed Mason was sneaking snacks and forgetting to throw away the wrappers. He denied it, of course, but what 8-year-old wouldn't? Then, one Saturday morning, my dad found muddy smudges on the laundry room floor. They were faint, but they didn't look like ours. The tread pattern was unfamiliar. We all stood there staring at them, probably from the movers, my dad said eventually. Must have tracked something in. But the movers had been gone for weeks. After that, I started noticing the attic access panel in the hallway ceiling. It wasn't something I'd paid attention to before, just a square outline with a small metal ring. But one afternoon, while walking to the height bathroom, I realized it wasn't sitting flush with the ceiling. One corner dipped slightly. It could have always been that way. I didn't know. Still, I grabbed a chair from the kitchen and stood on it. I reached up and pushed gently. The panel shifted easily. Too easily. I didn't open it. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want confirmation that something was wrong. I climbed down and told myself I was being paranoid. The moment everything broke happened on a Thursday night. My parents had gone to dinner for their anniversary. Mason was already asleep. I was downstairs finishing homework at the dining table. The house felt too quiet. Around 10:30 I heard it. A loud bump from upstairs. Not a creak, not a settling noise. A distinct impact. I froze. I listened for Mason. Silence. Then came the sound that made my stomach drop. A slow, deliberate footstep, directly above me. I stood up so fast, my chair scraped against the tile. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Hello?" I called out, my voice thin. No response. Another step. I grabbed the fireplace poker from beside the hearth. I don't know why that was my instinct, but it was the closest thing that felt like a weapon. I moved toward the stairs carefully, trying to keep my breathing steady. Halfway up, I heard Mason cry out. Not a scream, just a startled, confused whimper. Something in me snapped into focus. I ran. I don't remember taking the last few steps. I just remember bursting into the hallway and seeing Mason's bedroom door slightly ajar. The attic panel above the hallway was open. Completely open. A dark square in the ceiling. Cold air drifted down. I rushed into Mason's room. He was sitting up in bed, crying softly. "Did someone come in here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He shook his head. I heard a noise. I pulled him out of bed and told him to stay behind me. That's when I heard it again. Movement above us. Not walking this time. Crawling. Across the ceiling. I grabbed my phone and called my parents with shaking hands. My dad told me to get outside immediately and call the police. I didn't argue. I pulled Mason down the stairs, out the front door, and across the street to our neighbor's porch. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone dialing 911. The police arrived within minutes. 2 officers went inside while we waited outside under the streetlight. It felt unreal, like I was overreacting, like they were going to come out and tell me it was raccoons or loose ductwork. When they came back, they looked calm. They said they didn't find anyone. They checked the attic, cleared the rooms. Doors and windows were locked. One officer suggested it could have been an animal that escaped through a vent. I felt stupid. My parents apologized for all the trouble. We went back inside. I barely slept that night. The next morning, my dad decided to check the attic himself more thoroughly. Not just a quick look with a flashlight. He brought a ladder and climbed all the way up. I was standing in the hallway when he went silent. Completely silent. "Dad?" I called. He didn't answer right away. When he came down, his face was pale in a way I'd never seen before. "There's stuff up there," he said quietly. The police came back. This time, they stayed longer. The attic wasn't just insulation and beams. Near the far corner, behind a support column, someone had created a small space. There were flattened cardboard boxes laid out like bedding, empty food cans, water bottles, a flashlight, a small camping stove, and a duffel bag with clothes inside. Someone had been living above us. The officers said it's called phrogging, people secretly living in someone else's home. They believed whoever it was had been slipping out during the day when we were gone. One of the attic vents connected directly above the hallway. They could move quietly from room to room. The worst part wasn't the sleeping setup. It was what they found near the vent directly above my bedroom. A small, square cut in the drywall. Not big, maybe the size of a coin, perfectly positioned. When I stood on my bed and looked up, I could see straight into the darkness of the attic. And from there, straight down onto my bed. My dresser. My door. They had been watching me. For how long, we never found out. The police believed the person had escaped sometime during the commotion the night before. There was a loose screen on one of the attic vents leading to the roof. We never caught them. We moved out 3 months later. I'm 24 now. I live in an apartment with reinforced locks and motion sensors. I double-check every door before bed. Sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still listen for footsteps above me. And even in buildings without attics, I can't shake the feeling that someone might be just a few inches away, watching through something small enough that I'd never notice.